and welcome to Beacon of Creation, a weekly podcast on game design through the lens of Magic the Gathering. I'm Juliet. Also here with me is...
Hi, I'm Corv.
My dear friend Corv is here, and I'm so excited to hear about a custom magic project for a media property I know nothing about. So, can you tell me a little bit about how and or why you came to the point of making Five Nights at Freddy's custom magic cards?
Yeah, so Five Nights at Freddy's is, for those of you in the audience who have somehow managed to get this far in your life without ever hearing about it, a series of indie video games that also became a series of books that also became a different series of books that just recently got made into a movie. Got into it in like 2020 because my partner is a big fan. And we didn't have anything else to do in 2020 other than play video games and watch other people play video games.
That is the pandemic era
Yep.
lifestyle approximation as we all got like more into things than we thought we would, I suppose. I feel my parallel to that is a memory called Empire,
hmm
which I don't know. I've read and listened to now just like hundreds of times.
hmm
So Five Nights at Freddy's, when I say I don't know anything about it, I do know that it's a like grim dark horror in a like Chuck E. Cheese equivalent sort of place. You play security guard and the animatronics are coming to life and scaring you, and you've got to shut a door, and the animatronics might have like people guts on the inside?
Yeah,
Question
you got it.
mark.
No, that's about it. So, Five Nights at Freddy's kind of has a reputation for having like really confusing lore. That's a thing that people will say a lot about it. And I think that everyone who says that is wrong. I don't think it's that complicated of a concept. But a part of the problem with it is that there are the game lore and the lore in the books. There's like two different book series and the movie all have entirely separate and contradictory lore. So people kind of, I think, overplay how confusing it is. You just have to accept that none of it was planned out in advance, and you can't think about it that hard. It's a goosebumps. It's a ghost story. But the premise of Five Nights at Freddy's, the core premise of it, is that there is this Chuck E. Cheese-like restaurant called Freddy Fazbear's Pizza that was really popular in the 80s that got shut down because a bunch of children disappeared from it. In the games, you are playing, at least like the first game, you're playing the night security guard, whose job is to make sure that the animatronics don't kill anybody. Because as it turns out that the children who disappeared from the restaurant were murdered, their bodies were hidden inside the animatronics, and now they are haunting the animatronics, and they're trying to kill you. I think they're right too, personally. They caught me slipping. They can do whatever they want forever.
So each of the animatronics has their own kind of identity based on, like, one of them is a bear, one of them is a chicken, and they're different animals. But then also, do they have different, like, personalities because of how they are, like, haunted by different people?
Part of the differences in their personalities is because of, the various ghosts inhabiting them and whatnot.
You know, Freddy Fazbear is the titular character,
Mm-hmm.
hypothetically, from both the restaurant and the game.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm going to read a card here that you've designed. Freddy Fazbear, it's 3 black and a red for a 4/4 creature bear horror. It has vigilance. Freddy Fazbear can only attack alone, and whenever a horror you control attacks alone, put a +1/+1 counter on it.
So in the video game, they each have sort of a different pattern of how they behave. Their AI works differently and whatnot. And so I was trying to express that via magic mechanics. So my thinking behind the Freddy card is the way that Five Nights at Freddy's works is you are like the night security guard at this place. You are stuck in the security office. The animatronics are coming to get you. You can look at the security cameras to see where they are, to see how close they are to you. And then if they get too close to the point that they're about to come into your office, you're supposed to shut your door, but keeping the door shut uses up power, which you have a very limited amount of. And so you're just trying to manage your resources of your electricity to keep the animatronics out of the office so they don't kill you until you make it to the end of the night. What I did for the Freddy Fazbear card that I designed, the thing I was trying to express is that when you use up all of your power, when you fail, you've used up the power, Freddy Fazbear kind of shows up. It plays a little jingle. It plays I believe it's the Toreador March from Carmen.
Okay.
I don't know why. That's the one, yeah. And then yeah, I don't know why they picked that, but it does delight me. I think it's fun. But so when your power goes out, he shows up, it plays the Toreador March, and then you wait for an indeterminate amount of time. I believe that it is random how long it is between when the jingle plays and when you lose. But then you get jump scared by Freddy Fazbear. So because that's when Freddy is most known to appear at the end of the night by himself. He's the one you get. I thought that's why I did he can only attack alone. And that the mechanic, also adding on the mechanic of like getting stronger for attacking alone, I thought was another way to like express this, or at least get you as like a Magic the Gathering player to express this game element of the original game in Magic the Gathering games.
Which is, I will admit, as that's one of Juliet's like favorite things in all of custom Magic, is when we get to express an idea from a different thing in Magic terms, such that like the gameplay ends up reflecting kind of what do you call it, like the fantasy of the idea.
Yeah. So the way that I was actually approaching making my Five Nights at Freddy's cards is I was thinking about it like if I don't know, Wizards of the Coast approached me, they showed up on my doorstep, on their knees, rending their clothing, weeping, wailing, anguished, saying, "Corv, help us. We agreed to make Five Nights at Freddy's pre-con commander decks and we forgot how. You're the only one who can help us." To which I would, of course, say, "How did you get in my house?" But
And they would say, "You don't have the electricity to stop us."
yeah, the door wasn't closed. I don't know what to tell you. Um, so
The famous animatronic wizard of Wizards of the Coast fame.
that was my favorite. They jump scare me so much.
Uh,
So, of the cards that I made, it's because I was thinking about this like I was making like a commander deck. The commander that I intended from these cards that I made is this one that I've called William Afton, Animatronic Patriarch. And I will read the card text in a minute. William Afton is the guy what did all them murders. So he's the bad guy.
he both created the animatronics and also did the murders. It's not
Yes.
like a later murderer took advantage of. Okay.
Yeah, he was one of the two founders of the restaurant, one of the two like creators of these animatronics, and then he is also the same person as, if you go back one card, the other card I've made as an alternate commander is Springtrap the Yellow Rabbit. In the lore of the games, he would put on this like yellow rabbit suit.
Terrifying. Like,
Yeah, he also later in the series dies in that rabbit costume and then comes back as sort of undead lich, essentially, to continue his reign of terror.
so let's hear the commander and then the alternate commander.
Yeah, William Afton, Animatronic Patriarch. It costs 4 generic mana and then a red, white, and black for an 8/7 legendary creature human horror. And it says, at the beginning of each end step, place a target counter on a creature you don't control. Attacking creatures have first strike against creatures with target counters. When a creature with a target counter dies, create a 1/1 black construct horror token creature. And then for 1 and a black mana and sacrificing a creature, you can draw a card. So what I was thinking with this is like target as in like target for someone who's gonna get murdered.
Mm-hmm.
So putting a counter on another creature that you intend to destroy or kill, and then when it dies, it comes back at you get a construct horror token creature because he would hide their bodies in the animatronics, and then now they are ghosts who are loyal to him. So this whole deck with this commander would be about killing other creatures and getting them back as tokens or gaining tokens from that. The more damage you do to other creatures on the board, the bigger your board gets, and then sacrificing creatures for card draw.
And, Freddy Fazbear that we saw before has the whenever a horror you control attacks alone sort of thing. So we have some like horror, what we'd call these days horror kindred.
Yeah.
A deck that wants to have a lot of, horror sort of creatures. But we also get a little bit of a loner, a little bit of an exalted sort of thing where you might want to get a whole field of horrors that help each other, and then you attack with one of them at a time, which is like, okay, cool. I see how this is fitting together.
Yeah.
We can also take a look at, I love having built this within the idea of commander precons, because then there is like, oh, that alternate commander that's got all of the all the colors, as well as the different other legendary creatures that are like subsets of the red, white, black, what we sometimes call like Mardu sort of color scheme.
I think that deck building's really fun, but I'm not very good at it. And I like building specifically commander decks because it's a lot easier for me to be like, here's the theme of the deck. We are finding as many cards as possible that do something, interact somehow with what the commander does. And I just think it's a fun way to really direct deck creation.
Totally. So the alternate commander we have here is Springtrap the Yellow Rabbit. It's 3 red, white, and black for a 2/2 legendary creature rabbit construct horror. When Springtrap the Yellow Rabbit is cast from anywhere other than your hand, put your choice of +1/+1 first strike, vigilance, or menace counter on Springtrap the Yellow Rabbit. Counters remain on Springtrap the Yellow Rabbit as it moves to any zone other than the player's hand or library. And sacrifice 2 creatures. You may cast Springtrap the Yellow Rabbit from your graveyard for its mana cost.
Yeah. So what I was thinking for Springtrap, my logic behind here is this character's catchphrase in the games is, I always come back, because he keeps being killed off and dying and coming back and dying and coming back. He's come back like 4 times at least. And he just gets nastier and grimier every time. So what I wanted for this card was something that would get stronger the more that it dies and comes back. The more times that you recast it, it's stronger every time. So I figured that having it, so like when you cast it, if it's your commander, when you cast it out of the command zone, if it's just a regular card in your deck, casting it from your graveyard, that every time you do that, it gets a little bit stronger.
And so eventually, if you're either casting it for the command zone and you pay the extra tax or whatever, or if this isn't your commander, but you get it into your graveyard, you can keep like getting it out, and then maybe you sack it for value, and hey, I've got enough mana for the next turn. I'm also going to keep doing this thing. Then you end up with a 3/3 first strike vigilance menace, then a 4/4 first strike vigilance menace, and kind of keeps growing in a frightening sort of inevitability sort of way.
Yeah, exactly. Because I thought that would just be a good way to express the fact that he do always come back, though.
And if you have Freddy Fazbear out and you attack,
it's another +1 that stays on him.
That stays on him. That is strong and scary.
Yeah, originally I had, when I first started making these, I had him have his power and toughness be a little bit higher, and then I was like, no, that's too many. Because ideally what you're going to be doing, the way that I would do it if it was my deck, is I would have William Afton, Animatronic Patriarch, as the commander, and then I would be trying to get Springtrap the Yellow Rabbit on the board somehow. And then I would be using my commander's ability to be generating a bunch of construct horror tokens that I'd be sacrificing to get Springtrap back from the graveyard every time he dies. until he's just unstoppable.
How open are you to like constructive feedback?
I vary. What do you have to say?
So I think we could tweak this card to make it like a little bit scarier.
Mm-hmm.
I would consider either dropping 2 out of its mana cost or even 3 out of its mana cost, bring it down to like 1 red, white, black, or just red, white, black.
Mm-hmm.
Or potentially, in part because, if you're casting this for its mana cost from your hand,
That's true.
you're getting a you're getting a 2/2, or have more risky but potentially interesting would be to have sacrifice 2 creatures and Springtrap just comes onto the battlefield
Mm-hmm.
from the graveyard, which is strong. And you're potentially looking at like bridge from below, weird like dredge,
Mm-hmm.
sort of stuff where you're trying to like get your graveyard, get your library into your graveyard and everything.
Yeah.
But as a way to be like, listen, if you're paying for this the normal way, like, don't.
Mm-hmm.
But this can only go in a red, white, black commander deck. It's a tweak on, kind of a lot of the Icarid dredge style.
Mm-hmm.
Like, Magic used to have a lot of creatures that did weird, like, exile the top 2 cards of your graveyard because graveyard order matters. And if they are black cards, then you
Mm-hmm.
can return this, a lot of weird stuff like that. But if we wanted to make this card splashier, I would either make it easier to get into the battlefield the first time so that it can start dying off and then returning, or so that if it's your commander, as you're paying that like commander tax each time you're recasting it, you're starting from kind of a lower
Mm-hmm.
sort of field. Or just have this kind of combo thing where, like, hey, I want to get a bunch of tokens out so I can sacrifice them so I can keep bringing back Springtrap in this, like, terrifying way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that makes sense. I will, fully admit that the how much things cost mana wise is a thing that I am not the best at intuiting. I originally had it with a
Sure.
much lower mana cost with a much higher power toughness, but then I was like, well, I don't want it to be too OP. But I may have overcorrected.
So, looking at some of the other animatronics here, we've got Bonnie the Rabbit, which is a 1 and a black, 2/1 creature rabbit horror with all horror creatures you control have first strike as long as they are attacking.
So, obviously, Bonnie, one of the other animatronics. The animatronic band has 4 animatronics in it, at least the main one from the first game, from the movie. They add a bunch more animatronics in the later games. Also, there's a bunch of Five Nights at Freddy's games. But Bonnie is just like obviously one of the main band. And I did a little bit struggle with how to express Bonnie in the game mechanics of Magic, but I decided to go with this because, well, just personally, Bonnie's always the one that I lose to when I play Five Nights at Freddy's.
Is Bonnie faster than?
No, I'm just not paying enough attention. The the other thing is that the animatronics will, they each have kind of a different route they'll take. Chica, who's the next card on this list, always shows up on the right side of the player. She goes from the stage where she starts through to the kitchen, through to the office.
Let's share Chica real quick here. Chica the chicken, matching Bonnie the Rabbit's 1 and a black. Chica the chicken is 1 and a white for creature bird horror menace. Whenever Chica the chicken attacks alone, create a food token. Whenever you sacrifice a food token, put a +1/+1 counter on Chica the chicken, and she's a 2/2.
Yeah. So Bonnie and Chica are the 2 animatronics that activate first, I guess. As the nights go on, as we get further through the titular 5 nights at Freddy's, the game gets harder, they get more aggressive, but Chica and Bonnie are the first 2 that, like, move from their position and start coming towards the player to try to get ya. So for Chica, I decided that her thing would be about food tokens because this character's whole personality is about how much she loves to eat. And, like, first of all, girl, same. You can't see it in the picture I've used, but usually the character's depicted with a huge bib that says, "Let's eat." She goes through the kitchen to get to the player and stops in the kitchen for a while to get a snack. So I wanted that to be about food tokens. And then Bonnie, I decided to give first strike just because I wanted something that would just make it a little bit more powerful and a little bit more likely to kill me like he always does in the video game. I'm not good at video games, also.
You know, these things do happen.
Mhm. Yeah.
One question I have would be the sort of color pie for each of these cards, or rather, is there something about Bonnie's kind of character that is particularly mono black, or Chica's character that is particularly mono white?
Really, I was just trying to match the colors that they actually are. Bonnie's purple, so
Gotcha.
and Chica is yellow. That was really what I was going for. There's nothing in particular about their actual personalities that I would say is that evocative of any particular color. I did pick like the color identity of this whole set as like a precon deck. I picked because I mean I just personally am a diehard Orzhov player. I always play white and black. It's my favoriteest.
Heck yeah.
I love to make a bunch of little guys and then kill them all for my own benefit and have a grand old time.
And then add some red in there because it's like scary, relentless
Yeah.
attacking.
Yeah, and also I didn't have a particular card to convey this that I've made yet because I hadn't quite decided how I want to. But one of the big things that happens over the course of the many Five Nights at Freddy's games is someone does burn down the restaurant in an attempt to free all of the souls from their animatronic prisons. And
Relatable.
yeah, I mean, can you blame him? So I also wanted something with like a little bit of that fire.
Oh, sure, that makes sense. The thing I would say about Bonnie and Chica is I might swap the costs on the two of them.
First Strike is more of a white thing, but
in Menace is more of a black thing, and since black or white could do the food plus the +1/+1 counters,
that's true.
I think just a swap there would make sense. We've got another animatronic here. I believe you said there's 4 in the main band?
Yep. So the 4 in the main band are Freddy Fazbear, we've already talked about, Bonnie, Chica, and then our next friend, Foxy the Pirate.
Foxy the Pirate is 3 red and a red for a 5/3 creature fox pirate horror who has suspend 3 for red and a red, haste, and myriad. That very fun, very wordy, now that I see it on the card, old commander keyword that when you attack, you create a bunch of the attackers. What's Foxy the Pirate's deal?
So the thing about Foxy is that he is in the game and at kind of a separate starting location from the rest of the band. You know, Bonnie, Chica, and Freddy are on the main stage and Foxy's over in Pirate's Cove, his own little area. And Foxy doesn't become active and doesn't start going to try to get the player until you've spent long enough not looking at the security cameras. So if you check them regularly, then he never comes out to get you. But if you leave him unobserved for long enough, then he'll get going, and he is very fast, thus haste. But I figured that the way that I wanted to express the thing of like, if you don't look at him, that's when he comes and gets you. I thought that suspend was kind of a fun way of doing that. Like, you pay this small mana cost now, and then you ignore it for a while, and then he's here.
And then he's here, and it's a hasty 5/3 who can attack everybody. It's a scary sort of thing. No, we have a number of extra cards that aren't animatronics, and I'm a little worried about asking about them. Can you walk me through whatever the least scary or least tragic of these?
Yes. Well, so the least tragic, the least scary, I would say, is Balloon Boy, who is my favoriteest little guy. As far as I know, there's no ghosts in him. Unclear. We don't know for sure if there's ghosts in him, but I love him. He's my specialist little guy. But my Balloon Boy card, it's a 1 and a black for a horror construct creature. Is a 3/3 with Defender and Persist. When this creature dies, if it has no -1/-1 counters, return it to the battlefield under its owner's control with a -1/-1 counter. And then when Balloon Boy has at least one counter of any type, it can attack as if it did not have Defender. In the games, Actually, in the games, Balloon Boy doesn't show up until the second Five Nights at Freddy's game, but he was in the Five Nights at Freddy's movie, which is why I included him. I'm mostly going off of the movie stuff for my card set because I could get good screenshots from it. And also, it just came out and I enjoyed it. But in the game, Balloon Boy never actually attacks you. You can't lose to Balloon Boy. He just kind of shows up and calls the other animatronics to come get you. But I thought that Defender would be a fun way to express that, like, it doesn't attack you directly usually, and then Persist because, well, first of all, there's kind of a meme in the fandom that people hate Balloon Boy because he's annoying, and they're wrong. He's never done anything wrong in his life, and he's perfect, and he's my son. But in
Naturally.
in the movie, there's kind of a recurring gag that really the only jump scare in the movie is people seeing this little Balloon Boy figure and getting startled by it.
Because it's like a anti-jump scare.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, there's a thing I wasn't expecting, but it didn't kill me.
Yeah.
And that like raises the tension.
Yeah.
That it's not just all surprises kill me.
Yeah. So I thought that because it keeps showing up in unexpected places and startling people, this creature having persist was very funny. That like you think he's gone and now he's back.
I think this is my favorite of all of the mechanical designs. Like, if you stripped the Five Nights at Freddy's part from all of the cards, I think this is one that like stands out to me that I'm like, I love this design. I I am notably a fan of Lorwyn Shadowmoor. Even despite all of its faults. And I also love Defenders and Defender Matters stuff. And I think this is a really clever, like clear through line on the sort of classic one in a black 1/1 that dies and becomes a 2/2. In this case, instead of being a 1/1, it's a 3/3 defender that dies and then is a 2/2. I think that's a really clear and clever design.
The other thing that I think is fun about it is that given the text that I've given it, if you have like Freddy Fazbear on the board, or if you have like Springtrap and also some way to move counters between your creatures, you could make Balloon Boy a 4/4 and get him to be able to attack.
Yeah, that's a fun extra kind of interaction there. I think we'd have to figure out a way to get Balloon Boy to attack the first time to get the counter.
That's true, yeah.
From Freddy.
Yeah.
But I'm sure, you know, it's not like, oh, we're playing white. We don't have any access to any cards that make defenders attack. Like, I think we can make that work. Another kind of neat mechanical card that I don't think we have to get too deep into the flavor on is Hide the Bodies. It's 1 and a black for an enchantment. At the beginning of your end step, if a creature died this turn, create a black 1/1 construct horror creature token.
Yeah, I mean, I think that the intention behind that one's pretty obvious, so I'm not going to get too into it. But for Hide the Bodies as an enchantment, I figured that was just another good way to express one of the things that is already also done with the William Afton animatronic patriarch card, that when creatures die, they come back as the animatronics and they are now loyal to him.
And this plays really nicely with Bonnie, the rabbit, as we are able to, you know, if we have just a bunch of creatures, or as creatures end up just dying, we're accumulating these tokens, and then we can swing in wide with them and attack, and they all have first strike, or we can sacrifice them to the patriarch and draw cards, or we can sacrifice them to Springtrap to keep cycling Springtrap back into play. It's a fun, like, you hit a flavor note, but also a great mechanical, like, what's a good phrase? Like a linchpin in the Commander Precon. It's like, oh, once I have this out, any of my other cards work a lot better.
Yeah. I was also thinking about, when I designed this, I was thinking about how much I would love to have like a token generator in this kind of deck, like a Bitter Blossom or something. But I wanted something that would fit flavor-wise, obviously. And as much as I love Bitter Blossom, she's always been there for me. But having
doesn't have a 1-to-1 with this.
Generating fairies doesn't really make sense with this.
You know, if they come out with fairy nights at Freddy's, uh, I might take a look. It's like, hey, this one, it's all set outdoors in a fairy like glade, you know, with this beautiful pond, and then these flowers, and then these fairies are hatching. I'd be like, okay, yeah, you know, and they jump scare you,
Yeah,
I think.
I'd at least have to check it out. I'd be curious.
So we also have a pair of gold cards that aren't legendary creatures or anything here that I'd love to learn some more about. One of which is Pink Slip. It's black and a red for a sorcery. Each opponent sacrifices a modified creature. Create a treasure token for each creature sacrificed this way. And flavor text reasons: general unprofessionalism, tampering with the animatronics, odor.
Yeah, so at the end of the Five Nights at Freddy's like game, after you finish the 5 nights, there's like a sixth night, and there's like you can do a custom nights where you can decide who you want to be active and what you can set each of the animatronics individual like difficulty level. But at the end of that, you get fired. So you get, as you can see, the image I've used here is a screenshot from the game where, you know, you've completed the level and it says, great, now get out. And they give you your little pink slip because you just got fired. And the reasons that you get fired, as I used in the flavor text here, it says general unprofessionalism, tampering with the animatronics, and odor. But I figured because you got fired for allegedly tampering with the animatronics, that having everyone sacrifice a modified creature, so like a creature that has been in some way tampered with, was a fun way to tie into that. And then creating a treasure token for each of those because you just got paid.
Yeah, because you completed your work tenure for the 5 nights at Freddy's. Presumably, like, they just keep hiring security guards to be, like, killed?
Yeah.
Which is... that's a wild, but, I mean, you know, it's a premise for a video game.
Yeah.
I think we can...
Getting fired at the end of the Five Nights is always if you ever watch someone like do a Let's Play of Five Nights at Freddy's where they haven't played it before, it is a thing that always gets a laugh. As does when you get your paycheck and it is like piddlingly small.
The other gold card we have here is Sparky's Diner. For 1 red and a white, it's an enchantment with whenever a creature an opponent controls dies, that player may pay 2 generic mana. If that player doesn't, you create a food token. This ability triggers only once each turn.
Sparky's Diner is a location that is just from the movie. It was never in any of the games. But in specifically the Five Nights at Freddy's movie, there is a team of like secondary villains who are planning their schemes at Sparky's Diner, and their plan is they're going to go and break into the Freddy Fazbear's Pizza and wreck up the place. So I wanted to have something for Sparky's Diner, also just because I thought it was fun and I liked it. And I wanted a card that did something like this because I just like to make other people pay for my stuff. And I think that's fun.
Which is, as you say, very, very Orzhov. It's
For some reason, every time I play Smothering Tithe, people get mad at me.
And you can sacrifice the food to buff your Chica the chickens in a very fun way.
Yeah, I also, you can use them to buff Chica. Obviously, you could use them to gain back life. You could also sacrifice them for to benefit another card that I've made here, which is Mr. Cupcake. It's a 3 generic mana artifact that says sacrifice a permanent. Mr. Cupcake becomes a 3/3 black horror creature with flying until end of turn.
Does Chica throw the
Yes.
cupcake at you?
Not in the games, I don't think. I don't remember that happening. But in the movie specifically, Mr. Cupcake does the most damage to anybody out of all of the animatronics. And in fact, I believe more so than William Afton himself. Because Mr. Cupcake will just get, like, thrown and start biting. So I thought that, specifically because, like, Mr. Cupcake is something that Chica always carries around with her, I wanted to tie the, like, sacrificing what would probably be a food token, but I didn't want to make it limited to only food tokens. I wanted to give it a little bit more flexibility, but I imagined that in play, ideally, you would be sacrificing food tokens to do this. And then, you sacrifice the food token, and then you essentially just throw Mr. Cupcake at someone.
This really, I'm going to reference a really old Magic card, which is a card called Chimeric Idol,
Mm-hmm.
which is 3 generic mana for a non-creature artifact. It has 0, tap all lands you control. Chimeric Idol becomes a 3/3 turtle artifact creature until end of turn. They used to be like a staple in control decks
Mm-hmm.
because it like avoids removal
Mm-hmm.
by just not being a creature until you make it into a creature, and then it like starts turning sideways and attacking exactly when you need it to, like exactly when you've got the board set up in the right way.
Mm-hmm.
And Mr. Cupcake feels like a great like modern take on that lineage where you can enable sacrificing synergies, because who doesn't love like sacrificing synergies? It's, as you say, a use for like food and other permanents that you get onto the battlefield. It's got flying because, like, creatures are better these days in a
Mm-hmm.
lot of ways. It really feels like a kind of ascendant version of an old card like that. And it's ascendant also because it's flying.
Uh, I also was thinking about, when I was putting these together, like I keep saying, I was thinking about it specifically in the context of these being in a commander deck.
Mm-hmm.
And there just wasn't anything that had flying, and there wasn't anything that I could justify giving flying to
Mm-hmm.
beyond Mr. Cupcake, which I thought was really funny. It made me laugh, and that's what's most important about game design. But
Mm-hmm.
I was like, I would like something to have flying. If I was putting this together as like a full deck, I would probably add in a couple other cards that would be about getting like tokens with flying, because the person I mostly play Magic against is my partner, and their deck it's a Dimir deck with like all fairies.
Mm-hmm.
And it's frustrating to not have anything with flying.
Mm-hmm. And I mean, Mr. Cupcake can block a fairy for every food that you have. And if you've got Sparky's Diner and Mr. Cupcake out, then
Mhm.
they attack you with a 1/1 flying, and you block with Mr. Cupcake, and then you get another food so you can activate Mr. Cupcake to
Mhm.
block. And so if it's Mr. Cupcake and a Sparky's Diner against a Bitter Blossom, then you just have to wait for the Bitter Blossom to
Yeah.
deal with your opponent's life total
Mhm.
in a very fun way. All right. Thank you so much for sharing this project with us.
Yeah, thank you for having me. Thank you for letting me be on here to talk a little bit about it. I would like to say one thing real quick before we get to wrapping up it all, which is,
Mm-hmm.
well, I love Five Nights at Freddy's, and I have a lot of fun with the like world of them, the characters, the world building. I think they're kind of squirrely and silly, and I enjoy it. The creator of Five Nights at Freddy's sucks. Don't give him any money. Don't purchase Five Nights at Freddy's products.
Oh, that is good to know.
I
I
wanted, I didn't want your audience to think that
Mhm.
I think that Scott Cawthon is a good man. I think he sucks.
Gotcha.
That's why I'm
Th-
making these.
that makes total sense. And now that you've made them, Wizards of the Coast doesn't need to, and so they don't need to pay
No
money
one
to
needs to
that guy
pay
either.
anybody for
This is
FNAF's things. Don't.
So we've got a design challenge coming up for the month of November, and it's November. After last month was October, this is November. Design a card that uses something new to Magic this year, like a new creature type, a new keyword mechanic, etc. And we've got bonus points from Brad here, which is using more than one new to Magic aspect for your card. The new thing must be a release mechanic, so, we've got a lot of stuff that came out this year. It's been a long year for Magic.
Yeah.
We've got All Will Be One, March of the Machine, Aftermath, the whole Lord of the Rings set, Wilds of Eldraine, Doctor Who, all of those different universes beyond, universes within, universes, all the names for this stuff. It's all very exciting. So that's our podcast for this week. You can join our Discord with the link in the show notes and check out the show notes at beaconofcreation.com. thanks for coming on the show, Corv. Anything you'd like to tell people about?
I don't really have any projects I'm working on other than this. I will probably post these on other social medias as well soon, probably after this episode goes live. I'm not done with them yet. But you can find me on all social medias at Corvid Call. That includes Tumblr, the website formerly known as Twitter, unfortunately, co-host, probably the best way to find me. All of them, I'm Corvid Call. Anywhere and everywhere a person can be a username.
Mm-hmm. And you can find my writing at cohost.org/folly. I always say at folly on cohost, but I was like, what if I say the whole username, like the URL?
Yeah, then they can type it in.
Exactly, exactly. Thanks for listening. And always remember,
don't give your money to wizards.
Or the Five Nights at Freddy's guy.
Don't give it to Scott Cawthon. He's my nemesis.